In this video, I will show you how you can create a pagination control into your existing or new gallery. And before we jump into how we can create something like that, let me give you a quick demo of the final results. So this is my Power App that I have created, and it is connected to a backend SharePoint list that has the travel request data. And I'm using this gallery control to show all of that data, as you can see here. If you see here at the bottom, I have this pagination control. I have previous next button. I also have these number of pages that I can easily go to. And right now it is showing me 1 to 50 of 1001 results. That means my gallery is showing 50 items at one page. I can click on the next. This is going to take me to the next set of 50, starting from 51 to 100, as you can see here. Not only that, because I have these pages here, I can quickly click on any of the page and I can just jump onto that page. I can click on any other page which I wanted to go, and it's going to take me to that page, or I can go backward. So this is the pagination that I'm going to show you how you can build for your existing app, or if you're building a new app, you can definitely do that. So if you want to build something like this, stay tuned. Okay, so before we start, let's take a look of the data that I'm going to use to build this gallery, and then we will create the Power App. So this is a simple list that I have created. This is my travel request list, and as you can see here, it has all type of different columns. Okay, so I'm going to log into make.powerapps.com because this is where we start creating the app, and I'm going to create a simple canvas app. Okay, so my app is created. It's pretty empty app, nothing is here. The first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to insert a gallery. Now you can select the type of gallery, the design, the look and feel of the gallery as you want. It doesn't really going to matter because we are going to work on the pagination and we're going to restrict the number of items that we need to show in one particular page. Okay, so I'm going to just change a little bit of look and feel of this gallery, something like this. I need to change it to more looks like a table. You can also do that. It's not required. You can keep it how it is. You can restrict to the number of items that you want. Okay, so let me make some changes. Okay, so far I just added this header for my gallery, and I made this gallery to the full width, and I'm just showing the title. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to just copy this title control and paste it for each of my header. So I just created my gallery. It's not connected to any data yet. So if I'm going to connect my Power App to the SharePoint data source, so there is not really very easy way to create pagination with this approach. So we're not going to do that. So what we are going to do now, instead of connecting to this particular SharePoint list from Power App, I'm actually going to call a Power Automate. And how you can do that? So if you are on your Power App screen here, on the left panel, you can see the Power Automate here. Click on that button. We're going to create a new flow. So click on Create New Flow, and I'm going to create from blank. I'm going to rename this one. Okay. Now the first thing that we need here, that you need to understand from the pagination point of view. When you are trying to build a pagination, you need to set the number of items a single page can have. Okay. And we want to make it more dynamic. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask that information from Power Apps itself. So what we will do, we will add a compose here, and I'm going to rename this compose to page size. Okay. And then on the input here, you can see once you click inside the input button, you can see ask in Power Apps. What does it mean? That means that you are creating a variable that you can pass from the Power App when you're going to call or trigger this particular flow. So I'm going to select that. So you can see the variable got created. So that's the one thing. The second information that we're going to ask from the Power Apps, if you remember my app, when I'm clicking on the next or any of these page item, I'm quickly jumping into that particular page. So I need to pass the ID from where I want to start that page to be. Okay. So here I'm going to do the same method. I'll add a compose here, Let's rename it. We're going to call it start item ID. You can call it anything. And we're going to ask in a Power App. So we created two variables here. Pretty simple. Awesome. Okay. Now the next step. So we got the page size and we also got the start item ID. Now we're going to simply use our standard SharePoint connector. So I'm going to search for SharePoint, get items. I'm going to select my site address where I have that travel request list. I know my list name. Okay. So we have the filter query. What I'm going to do here, we have the ID column in SharePoint like this one, right? This column I'm going to use to drive my pagination. So what I'm going to say, ID is greater than start item ID input. This is what I'm going to get from Power App. And the second, I need to create the page size, right? I don't want to send everything that I'm receiving here. So I'm going to say page size input. Again, this is I can define in my Power App. I can say, okay, my page size is 10. So it's going to just give me the 10 and 10 item, or I can say my page size is 200 or 500. Okay. Okay, once you click save, your Power Automate will create. We're still going to make some changes to the flow. Okay. Now you can start doing from here. I can click edit and it's going to again take me to the screen, or I can go to flow.microsoft.com and I can see my flow directly from here as well. Yeah, so this is the flow. Okay, so far what we have done, we have created this flow. We have created two variables. One is going to give us the page size and another one is going to give us the starting ID. And then we are getting all the SharePoint item based on these settings. Okay, so before we move forward, let's see how we are getting the output. So I'm going to add another action here, compose, and here I'm going to just select the value that is we are getting from the get items. Okay, click save, and we can test it here to see the type of response we are getting. And here I can pass sample input. So I'm going to say give me the 5 item and start from 0, run flow. And you don't need to do this particular step. I'm just showing you to give you an idea how the response is coming in. So if you look here, this is how we are getting the response. It is a JSON file with all the information about different columns coming from SharePoint. Okay. Now the challenge is if we're gonna use another action that is respond to Power Apps. Okay. And if I click and add output, as of today, we can only send the response from Power Automate to Power Apps with these type. So I can send a text or a string output, yes, no, file, email number, or date. So I don't really have an option to send a JSON. Okay, so let's select the text and I'm going to call it response. Okay, in the response, I'm going to search for this value that is the same response that we use in this compose action. And I'm going to say that I'm going to send whatever I'm receiving, sending back to the Power App. Okay, if I do something like this, what's going to happen, the response, though I'm getting a JSON response from the get items, but I can only send as a string. And if I go back to my Power App, here also I'm going to receive that as a string. And I don't have any function in Power App to convert that string back to the JSON so that I can easily use it as a data source for this gallery. So it's not going to work like that. So what you need to do, go back to your flow. Before sending the response here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add another action and I'm going to search select, and there is a action called select. What this action does, it allows you to create a new array or new JSON from an existing array, and then you can select the column that you want to display or have in this new array. And why we are doing that, because if you look at the response that we have received in this get item, it has the complex JSON, and let me quickly show you that. So this is how you get the response. This is that value variable that we are seeing in our flow. So you have all the columns like title, ID, but whenever you have the column like the person or user field, right, or the choice, they comes like more complex structure, right? So this overall response that we are receiving from the Power Automate get items has more complex structure. So what we're going to try to do, we're going to try to make it more simpler so that when we send this response to Power App, we can easily read that, Okay, and this is very simple and straightforward. The only thing you need to do, select that value from, okay, and then you're gonna just start typing the name. So first column that I want is title, and you can give any name here in this thing. The only thing that you need to make sure you are selecting correct is the value. So what should go to the title? I can search for title, right? Second column is ID, and I'm going to search for ID here and select that. And this way you can select only the column that you're planning to use in Power App and do not need to send everything that is coming from this get item. And there can be cases where you have some column in your SharePoint that is not required. Okay, so it can has empty or null value. So what's going to happen in those scenarios, in my case, if I say requester, in my case, this column is optional. So I can still create a request without providing the requester in my SharePoint list. So what will happen here if I select requester, let's say I want to just send the email. If I do this, in the scenario where this field is empty, it's going to return null. Okay, but what I wanted to do when I'm sending this response to Power App, I don't want to send null. And I'll tell you why I don't want to send null when we go to the Power App. So instead of doing that, you can use this smaller simple expression. So what this expression is checking, if then I'm using a function called equals this item requester display name, because that's what we wanted to send, is null. So if I'm getting null here, then I'm going to pass the empty string. So instead of null, I'm passing an empty string, and if it is not null, it has the value, then I'm going to send it. Very straightforward expression, simple to use. Okay, click OK. Now similarly, I'm going to add all of my different column, and you just need to make sure that if the column is optional, or you can have an optional value, then you just need to use this expression. Okay, so I just did, I added all of my columns. Couple of column that I have is optional, so I am using that if function. Okay, now I'm gonna, instead of sending this value, I'm gonna send the output of this select. Okay, so you can go to the expression, say body, and then select. This is nothing but name of my action. So if you rename this select to something else, make sure that you are using that name here. Click OK. Okay, save. So now our flow is ready. Okay, this part is done. Click save. Now let's go back to our Power App. Now what we want that this gallery is populated as soon as we receive the response from the flow. Okay, so I'm going to go to the app on start, because what I want, whenever my app is loading or starting first time, I'm going to call that flow that I have, get all those items that I have defined in one page size and display into my grid. Okay, so for that you need to write a quick simple function here. The first thing that we're going to do, we're going to create a variable. So my first variable is the grid page size. This is going to define how many items I like to see in one particular page. Second, I'm going to call the flow that I just created. So I'm going to say set, I'm creating a variable that's going to receive the response that is coming from my flow and make it available for me. Okay, and then if you forget the name, you can just see the name here. So what you're going to do here, you're going to just start typing the name and it will show up. So you see here gallery pagination.run. Do that, and if you look at the action here, it has two variables that we can pass: page size input and the ID. Page size is the variable that we have just created, and the start input is going to be 0. Why? Because we are just loading the app, so we want to start from the first page. Now let me show you how the response is going to come. This is also optional, you don't need to do it, and because we have changed it, so I'm going to refresh. So whenever you make any changes to your flow, if you don't see that change here, make sure that you come here and refresh, and then here you go, I have my response. Okay, and then how you can run the on start. If you go to your app, click on run on start, this is going to make the call to the flow and you see the response here. And if you go back to the flow, you should be seeing this is completed. So this is how you get the response. Let me copy it just to show you how the response coming. Okay, the response is coming as a string, but it is perfectly providing all the column that we have created in our select array. So we are getting title, ID, response, everything is coming as we need it. The only challenge is it's a string and you can't just change this to obj items dot response because it's not a table, right? Not a table. So we can't really do just like that. So now what we need to do, we need to somehow take this string and convert this to a JSON or an array. Okay, we're going to start using a function called clear collect, that nothing but to create a collection, because we need to collect this entire information to a collection. Okay, and then I'm going to give the collection a name. Now we're going to use a function called match all. Okay, match all, and because we know we have this format, right? We have this predefined structure that we are sending from our flow. We're going to just try to match this. Okay, we're going to just take this one item and try to give to that match all function that whenever you find the structure like this, give me all the results. What the match all will do, it's going to convert this entire string to the array, what we want. Okay, so how this match all is going to look like. Okay, so the first thing that we need to pass in the match all, the actual string. So we know the actual string that we are getting is, okay, so this is the string that we are getting from the flow, and then you need to pass your pattern. Okay, so this is the pattern, and don't worry, I'm gonna walk you through. It's not that complex as it looks like. Okay, so you see that. Now let me copy that into another file so that you can easily read it and how you can do this with your column. Okay, so this is the pattern that we have. If you remember, we are passing all these IDs, so you can see title, ID, region for travel. So title, ID, region for travel. So all of those columns that we have, that we are passing from the flow, are listed here, and how you can create the pattern. The first thing that you need to do, the first column that you are passing. So in my case, I am passing title. You need to put the title into the double quotes, and why we are doing that. If you look at here, this is how the title is set up. Double quotes, title, double quotes, colon. Okay, so when you are creating that pattern in Power App, you need to, instead of double quotes, you need to do the double quotes. So this is for the title. Then you see that we had the colon. So you are seeing the colon, right? And then after that, you need to get the value. So you are saying that whatever is the title, and then I give me whatever the value. So how you can get the value? This is the pattern for the value. Double quotes. Then you have your parenthesis, question mark, less than, the name of the column that you are trying to get value. Then you have bracket, caret, double quotes, caret close, star, parenthesis, double close. So this is the pattern. Now you can copy this pattern and repeat it for any other column that you're passing. You don't need to make any changes or make any adjustment to this pattern. Like for example, in ID, the only thing has changed from here to here, the name of the column. And another thing that we have changed, now I don't have these two double quotes front and end. The reason, because this is the number type column. So if you have the text column that is coming from the flow, you need to use this pattern. And if you have the number column that you need, then you need to use this column. And you can take that simple example from here. So if you don't see double quotes in front of the value, you don't need to pass that here. Okay, and then you can repeat this for all of the column that you are sending from the flow. Okay, so this part is done. Hopefully it was clear. Few key point that you need to remember. If you see that after putting all together and you click on the run your flow or run your Power App and you don't see any response, because this is the pattern matching. Okay, so you need to make sure the number of column that you are typing here is matched how you are receiving the response. Okay, I'm gonna do the run on start, and now if I go to this gallery and I will select the obj response, because this is the new collection that we have created, and you notice here, right, I am receiving all the response. And now I can go to each field, and actually if I go this item dot title, as you see, right, so now I'm getting all of my column straight from the flow, and I can map all of these columns. So let me quickly map them. And if you want to see how the response is looking, if you select this response, open this table, and you go, you are getting all the column that you need directly from the flow to your Power App. And now you can use it however you want to do. So let me complete this mapping and then we will work on our pagination, because that's what we're going to do. Okay, so this part is done. I mapped all the columns. So our half part is done. We are able to query the data from flow to the Power App. But now we need to work on our actual pagination, right? So what we need two button, the previous and next. So I'm going to just insert two button here. Okay, so I added two column, previous and next. Now what we need to do in the next and previous. Very similar, if you go to your app on a start, okay, and I'm going to copy everything from calling the flow and then clear collect, go to the next. On start or on click of this button, okay, on select, I'm going to copy paste. So this is pretty much it. But when you click on the next, what you want to pass? You want to pass this ID, that if you remember, this is the start ID, to whatever is the next page ID should be. So for that, what I'm going to do, instead of passing the 0, I'm going to say if is empty this gallery. Okay, so what we are saying, we are checking if this gallery is empty, that means no data is displaying. So I'm going to say if this gallery, that is gallery 2 dot all items. Okay, so if it is empty, then I'm going to say, okay, start from 0, start from the first item, because there is no item in the gallery. Else I'm going to use another function called last gallery 2 dot all items dot id. Okay, and then if I format this text so you can easily read it. So very simple. Instead of just passing the 0, what we are trying to do, we are checking if our gallery or the grid has any item. If it has any item, that we're going to just get the last ID, whichever it is showing here, and then pass that ID. So that will be my starting point for the next page. And if it is empty, then I'm just passing the 0. Okay, and I'm going to just copy this entire thing and go to my previous button. Similarly, on select, I'm going to paste the same thing here. The only thing will change here, instead of last, I'm going to say first. Okay, so I'm getting the first ID, the top ID, and then I'm going to minus the page size. So for example, if I am on the second page and my top ID is, let's say, 30. So what I'm going to say, give me the 30, the first ID on that page. And if my page size is 10, then reduce the 10, then I'll get 20 and minus 1, because we want it to start from the first item on that previous page. So this will give me the previous page starting point. You need to get the starting point for the previous page. Okay, click save and let's test that. Okay, so right now we are on the first page, and because we have set it the page size to 50, so last item is 50, I'm going to click next. It should give me starting from 51 to 100, and as you can see here, right? So now I get the next, so I get the next page. If I go back, it should go back to the first 250. Awesome, right? If you just wanted to build your app with previous next, you are not really worried about those actual pagination, you are good to go. If we want to extend that and add something like that pagination, the actual page number, then we need to make some adjustment to our flow and also in our Power App. So to get that pagination control done, number one thing that we need to know the number of items, the total number of items that are in this particular list that we are using. Okay, so for that, I'm going back to my flow, click Edit. You need to add another action here, and this time it is still SharePoint, but what we are trying to do, we are trying to get the total number of items in this list where we are trying to create this pagination gallery. So for that, I'm going to use an action called send HTTP request to SharePoint. And the API is very simple, it's not that hard. Okay, so this is the API underscore API web list get by title, and then give the name of the title. And what this is going to do, it's going to get the information about this list. And one of the information that we need is going to be the number of items. I'm going to add a compose action here. And this is the response. Okay, this is just the response from the previous action. Okay, so I'm going to test this one to show you how you are getting the response. Okay, so if you look at this response that I'm getting here, this is the response, and in here you want to have a property that is item count. So this item count is going to give you the total number of item in this particular list, and this is what we're going to use. And if you look at the structure, it is the property name is item count, and it is D and then item count. So how we can use that, I'm going to go to this compose again, go to the expression. Okay, so this is how you can get this. So body, the name of your action. If you rename it, you need to rename the send an HTTP request to SharePoint here. Question mark D, that was the first thing that you've seen, and then item count, that's the name of the property. This will give you the count of the item. Okay, and the only thing I'm going to do in the response to Power App, I'm going to add another output. Okay, and I'm going to say total items, and then use the same concept or same variable here. So body, the name of the action, the send HTTP request, D, and item count. Click OK, save. Okay, so now we are not only sending the response, we are also sending the total item count to our Power App. Okay, I'm going to go here and refresh. Okay, and just to see that total item count, I'm going to just add a label here. This is temporary, you don't need to follow that. This is just to show you how we are getting the response. Okay, here we're going to say obj items, because that's what we are receiving from the flow, and we have the total item counts. Okay, now if I go again and just do the run on start, awesome, right? So now we are also getting the total number of items. Now these total number of items is going to help us to create those pagination. So for that, I'm going to drop a horizontal gallery now. Okay, and I'm going to just say show me the blank, resize it a little bit. I'm going to place it correctly. Okay, now item for this horizontal gallery that we have created, I'm going to use another function called sequence. Okay, and what it does, it's going to nothing but it's going to create a sequence based on the number input that you are giving. Okay, so if I say sequence of 10, it will create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In our case, what I'm going to pass here, the obj items dot the total item counts, because this is our number that we want to create. But we don't want to create like 1 to 1001. Instead, I want to create this for the page size that we have. So I'm going to divide this by grid size that we have plus 1 and starting from 1. Okay, so now if you look here, it's going to just give me those different pages. Now I'm going to just go here. If you don't see, there is a small link here that says click item, click there. I'm going to add a label. Okay, and then maybe adjust it a little bit. Okay, and then making sure the label that we have added, it has all the starting point from the front, and then I'm going to give it some width. Okay, so I gave some height and width for these label and also for the gallery. But right now, if you remember, our page size is 200, so let me set it to 50. And then of course I need to do run on start so that it can get reflected. And now if you look at here, I'm actually getting all those different pages because now I have set it to the 50. Okay, but this is not looking good. So what I need to do, I need to go to the gallery, this horizontal gallery setting. I don't need the scroll bar, but I need the navigation. Okay, so navigation is going to be like this. So it's going to help me move forward or backward. Let's play this one so at least we can see this navigation is working. Yes, right. So we have our navigation ready. I'm going to go here. Also one more setting. If I go to the advanced, this focus border thickness I don't need, so I need to make it 0. We have our pages already. Now we just need to write formula. The actual formula is very same. I just need to copy this same formula, okay, and then on select of this label I am going to paste the same formula. But same formula is not going to work because the thing that I need to change is this part here, that which ID it should take to go to the next or to go to this particular page. Okay, so how are we going to calculate the ID? So this item dot value, okay, and what's going to give me, it's going to give me the page number 1 2 3 4 or whatever it is. What I'm going to do, I'm going to minus 1 from that value. If I take an example of, let's say, page number 2, okay, so it's going to have 2 minus 1, so that is going to give me 1, and then I'm going to multiply this by our page size. Okay, so what's going to give me, it's going to give me 1 into 50 is 50, right? So when I'm clicking on the second page, this is my starting ID, that is 50, and that's correct. Okay, so this is how this formula is going to work or help you to go to the right page when you click, and we can test that quickly. So I'm going to play this one and let's click on the page number 5. So the formula is going to be 5 minus 1 is 4 into 50, that is 200, and the page starting from the 201. Perfect, right? So now I can go to any of the page or how many pages we have, click on that particular title or the label, and it will take me to that page. So the functionally it's working. Now we're going to just give some more UI flavor to it. So for example, the selected item and all of that. So for that, what we need to do, make the highlighted color. You will select the label, go to the color property, go to the fill property of this one. And this is the simple formula that we will use. So what we are saying, if this item dot value, that is the page number, into the page grid size, it's going to give me the actual ID. So if I'm on the second page, it's going to give me whatever page size is, let's say 50 into 200, right? And saying if this equal to the last item ID of this current grid. Okay, so if that is equal, then that means you are on that particular page. So I'm going to use this color. You can use any color that you want to highlight that, or else I'm going to keep it white. Okay, we're going to also set these previous next, because if I'm on the first page, I don't really need to go to the previous, but we want to disable it. If I'm on the first page and if I'm on the last page, then I just wanted to disable this one. So for previous button, I'll go to the display mode, okay, and I will use this very simple formula. If the first item of the gallery, that's the gallery 2 is my gallery here, this one, is equal to 1, then just disable it, else just keep it enabled. Similarly, if I go to the last one, very same formula, we just need to use, instead of first, we will use the last. Okay, so for the last button, we're going to say if last ID of the current gallery is equal to the total items, then just disable it or keep it. Okay, and one last thing, if you've noticed, I also have this small text here, and if you want to keep that also, it's also very simple. It's just you need to add one label. Okay, and for this text, you can use just this simple function showing the first ID of the current gallery. So that's going to be whichever page you are, the first ID, and the last, and then total. This is a simple formula if you want to have that, right? Yeah, so this is actually what you can do to create this very interactive and also configurable pagination. Thanks for watching and thanks for staying so long. I hope this will help you. Keep learning, keep watching. Thank you very much.